What's up, guys? This is Doctor, and welcome to another episode of the FPL Fantasy. It's a midweek game week, and we're excited to be here. This episode will go as usual review, thoughts, and preview. But before going into this episode, Joe, how are you?
Doing okay in life, not great in FPL. Hey, I guess we'll talk about that.
Well, you think you're not doing great. You're doing absolutely great. You're just not doing as great as you used to do, like in the first three game weeks.
Yeah, I had a standard set, and
Yeah.
achieving anything besides green arrows nonstop for 38 game weeks is missing the mark.
And to clue you in, before we go into this episode, we're going to discuss three main topics in the middle, which is basically should you sell Salah after this form? And the next point will we talk about Richarlison as he emerges as a possible differential. And the last thing we're going to discuss captaincy as usual. So, in sandwiched in between our kind of discussing how our game week went, game week 4, and what are our plans and team selection for game week 5. Shall we get into it, Joe?
Yeah, let's do this.
So, Joe, let's start with you. Here's your team. Hit
Yep.
me.
Yeah, so I played a -8. Felt like the right thing. It was like average. I think it'll be the right thing over a period of time, as you see. But this game week, it was a bummer. Got 50 points and then my -8, so 42 points on the game week. I don't know if anybody remembered, but I think I was like 17,000 or something like that. Yeah, we're close to the same rank, only 742,000 now. So it was a tough week. Rodrigo, yes, he was going up against Brighton's defense. I know everybody loves Brighton's defense. They're the greatest thing ever. They're better than Liverpool ever was and Man City could ever dream to be. I understand, but Rodrigo was the guy. Put him in, thought I was going to get some quality, especially after playing in that Chelsea game, and didn't manage to really get anything. And that's an issue that Leeds ended up having themselves as a whole team. I think they only had a couple shots and then like one on target, if I remember right, looking at the stats after the game. I was forced to play De Silva, but that is because Zinchenko was injured. So Zinchenko, hopefully he comes back this game week. He's one of my key defenders. I need him back. Get some clean sheet points if nothing else. So hopefully he comes back in. And then the other thing that I ran into that really hurt me here, aside from the Salah captain basically failing and, not captaining Holland, other thing was Madison. Madison is kind of the heart and soul, it feels like, of that Leicester attack. And it really came out this game week when he was injured. I looked at a couple quotes from the team physio. They said it was more of a precautionary thing with Madison. So I think he should be good to go for the midweek. Come back, get me a goal, get me an assist. I don't care. Just bring points back into my team. I'm dying here. And finally, the last thing that I wanted to mention is my man Henderson. You know it. You hate him. I love him. If you've watched our channel, you know that I mention Henderson literally every game week. I mentioned him all preseason. Everybody thought I was crazy. Yes, Nottingham Forest is giving up chances. They are like at the shooting gallery, basically. It's a firing range out there if you're Henderson. But the man is getting saves and he's getting penalty saves right now. A stat that I actually sent to Doc today was Henderson has saved 10 of his last 19 penalties. That's more than 50% on penalties on something that, as football fans, we consider to be almost automatic if you're the attacker. So, insane stat. I want to see more penalties. I want to see more saves. Let's get to it, Henderson. You're working your way up to be my captain soon, buddy. Doc, what do you think about my team?
Speaking of Henderson, because I just looked it up, the XG of a penalty is 76.76. So statistics say that 76% of, let's say, penalties go in, right? So this statistic that Henderson saves more than 50% is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, I applaud you for that. And for the people who have been watching, Joe, as he mentioned, he was 17K before this game week and he dropped to 700K. That's the reason, kind of you see how I play and you see how Joe plays. Joe plays this risky game, going for the upside and taking like out players like Trent before Bournemouth at home,
Hmm.
just trying to chase that upside. Kind of you go up and down. So you'll see more volatility in Joe's rank than I will have because I try to play the game a bit differently. So the season is long. It's a red arrow, which makes it easier to get a green arrow next game week. So I hope you do well. And I can't wait to see what transfers you have planned for us at the end of this video.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe everyone.
So moving on to my team from last week, I did quite well. I think I got a couple of lucky, let's say, assists. For example, James and Cocorella got their assists while being a man down. That's extremely lucky, I think. I think it was a bit unlucky for Man City to lose their clean sheet. Actually, it's unlucky that they conceded two goals because the two goals were like I think it was 0.11 xg. Again, this is football, and you cannot expect every shot to be 1 xg, right? There is some luck. There is a bit of let's say no luck, but yeah, all in all, I'm happy with how I jumped. I jumped from 750k to like 559k, so I'm happy with that, and I hope I can push on with other green arrow. Haaland scored hat trick. Trent Alexander-Arnold again, as expected, performed versus Bournemouth at home. So team is template as we expect from myself, but yeah, you will see that I'll be steering away from template very soon.
That's good to hear. I love hearing that, Zach. Please steer away from the template. I have to do my usual. James is still in there. I understand he's an attacker. Yeah, okay, I get it. He seems like he's being consistent. Maybe he'll make it into my team sometime this year if he's actually going to decide to be consistent. Things are looking pretty good for him right now, but I'm just waiting for that zeros and those ones to come for 20 game weeks in a row. Cucurella, yeah, like you had mentioned, the Chelsea defense ended up getting some pretty lucky goals for the most part. Unfortunate, but that's okay. That's the way the game is. And as far as people are concerned, big at the back is back. I call it boring at the back, but hey, it gets points, I guess.
Yeah, it's a nice debate to have one day. Maybe we make an episode just discussing kind of what kind of mentality that goes into making the decisions because you keep calling it boring, for example, but I would argue that getting points is not boring. So uh, I see it a lot on Twitter, on social media, like, oh, this manager is boring, or I'm playing boring, and I keep saying it on our videos that I play boring, like in quotation
Yeah.
marks. But yeah, like boring, but I'd take my top 10k over 2 million rank just because I played excitingly. It's just about perspective, and I understand the other perspective. So it would be a nice episode to have, Joe. So moving on to our kind of the meat of the episode after giving you the starters, and let's talk about should you sell Salah? Joe, what do you think about that?
It's kind of up in the air, honestly. I I feel indifferent about selling Salah, if I'm being 100% honest, because yes, Salah isn't necessarily performing the way that we've expected him to. He got a blank in game week 2, got a blank this game week, but is it because we want to sell him because first off he's priced pretty high and we hold him to an incredibly ridiculous standard? So I can see where there's an argument to sell him. The spot that I come in and I say, okay, maybe we don't sell him is it's kind of tough to find that premium or that quality midfielder that you want to sell him for. There is some argument for KDB, but I think the real attraction to KDB early on in the season was he's going to assist Holland, and as we saw, that's not necessarily always the case, especially this game week. And then the other attractive option typically would be Son, but Son just he hasn't found it yet this year. And that's unfortunate because I absolutely love Son. He's one of my favorite players. It's just tough to find where do you go from Salah. And I'm not saying, hold up a bunch of funds in Salah just hoping that he scores or gets an assist or gets a brace, whatever it might be. You also kind of feel pretty weird having like 5 million in your in your bank. And you could move it to your forward line and maybe get the Holland Kane team up there. But it depends on who you're bringing Kane in for. I guess it more depends on where you're using those funds, really, in my aspect. I think Salah is going to bounce back and he's going to probably get more consistent, but I think holding him to the standard of last year where he just crushed it every game week for the first, like, what, 20 game weeks or up until AFCON, like, we're asking too much, even though he is that 13 million. Doc, what about you?
Well, Liverpool until game week 9 have like Newcastle at home, Everton away, Wolves at home, Chelsea away, and Brighton. So there are the fixtures for Salah to score. Yes, I agree. If Salah doesn't score a hat trick, it's like, what is he doing? Like, he's not performing and stuff because we set high standards and he has set high standards for himself. Similar to Ronaldo and Messi, for example. I'm not saying he's on the same level, he's close, but he's not on the same level. Remember one season, like Messi scored like something like 90 goals, and then next season, if you score 60, like what happened? That's a 33% drop off. So yeah, like if you look at it this way, we have a high standards for him. However, watching the game, Salah seems been drifting wide to allow kind of players to come in, like Trent Alexander-Arnold. We saw the shot that he took versus Bournemouth, where it was from. It was like close to the D and phenomenal shot, but Salah being wide allowed kind of those kind of moves. So same for Harvey Elliott and stuff. So watching the games, the eye test, Salah feels that he's a bit more wide, a bit less involved. But if he had scored those two big chances versus Bournemouth, we would not be having this conversation right now. He had two big chances that he missed. One of them is like 4 yards out or even less. I think Salah is a hold for now and see how things develop. Yes, if you want to move on to like KDB versus Nottingham Forest and you feel KDB will do well, I wouldn't blame you after what we saw, especially if you're gonna captain and captaincy is not on Salah this game week. Most people, I would say a lot of people will captain Salah. His effective ownership will probably be over 100%. Again, if you take captaincy, if you're not thinking about captaining him for the next 4 or 5, I don't blame you for taking him out, but I would keep him in my team for now. But because, like you mentioned, there are not really a lot of options to have, so he's a hold for me for now.
Yeah, and that's the worst part. I love playing dangerous. I love playing risky, but if there's nobody else to really have a clean swap to, or it's going to take a lot of moves to make that, maybe not. Maybe not.
I should mention, I have tinkered with the idea of Salah to KDB this game week. I did tinker with the idea, so it crossed my mind, and I'm not the risky type of manager, so I don't blame a risky manager taking that move. I think overall number one in the world has never had Salah since the beginning of the season, if I wasn't mistaken. So if it's not the case this game week, it was last game week. I kind of checked it. So yeah, this is how it works. You have to take risks kind of to win it all, but I'm the type of manager who tries to get the highest ranks possible, and that's about it. Moving on to our next topic, Richarlison. Joe is a Tottenham fan, is a Spurs fan, so we'll hear most from him about regarding this. Do you think Richarlison is an option now, Joe?
I'm the American host. You hear most from me just nonstop. We love to hear ourselves talk. But yeah, the Richarlison thing, for people that didn't hear, Conte said in the presser, every time he's playing for 20 to 30 minutes, playing very well, for sure in the next games you will see him in the starting 11. Uh-oh. That's the issue that we're having here. So now who comes out? Do you take out Kane? Nah, no chance. Don't touch that man. He's on fire. Leave him there. Do you take out Kulu? He's gotten attacking returns here or there, but his creativity is one of the most dangerous things he has going for him. Son. You gotta talk about Son. He's subbed in for Son for multiple game weeks. Son's just off the mark a little bit, needs maybe a little confidence boost. Hasn't been playing quite as sharp as we're used to seeing him play. I think he's still on preseason mode. That might be where Richarlison comes in, and that's where I think he probably does end up coming in. Buyer beware, holder beware, maybe. If you have Son, he could not start. Maybe I could definitely see him coming in and getting 20 or 30 minutes. He's not going to get that X minutes that you expect like normal. He's just off the mark. There's something going on with him. Doc, what do you think?
Conte said in the next games.
Yeah.
So he's kind of alluding to the fact that he will start at some point, but it doesn't mean it's the next game. Yeah, Richarlison can become an option, especially if there is an injury somewhere. So I think I wouldn't get him in just yet. He's too risky for my liking. His starting position that might not happen this game week, so I wouldn't get him in. And it's versus West Ham. Yes, West Ham are playing not very well this season so far, but still, it's West Ham at their own stadium, so it's not an easy match, I would say. It might not be as easy as people think it is. So I don't see the upside of getting Richarlison, but yeah, definitely if he becomes an option as an FPL player, he's the type of player who's relatively selfish, which is good for FPL because he takes a lot of shots from some difficult positions. He's almost two-footed, so he's basically a Brazilian son. So yeah, it's nice to have him in your team, in your FPL team, but I think it will require an injury to kind of have him for 3, 4 game weeks in a row rather than one game week and then the next game week he's on the bench and just he becomes a frustrating owner.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest point is just not necessarily saying Richarlison comes in for sure into the starting 11 this game week, but there's the possibility of this game week or in the next few that he does. And if you're holding on to Son, how do you feel about a 12 million player possibly only getting like 15 or 20 minutes? That's something as a manager yourself, you kind of have to figure out, am I okay with this? So it's just a warning. It's just a warning. I'm not making promises.
All right, Joe, let's move on to the next topic, which is probably the most anticipated one, captaincy. Who are you captaining, Joe?
So I think the best option really is Holland for captaincy. We saw this game week, Foden figured out how to pass. It's incredible. And somehow Holland got a hat trick from it. It's almost like we talked about it last episode, right? You got to go with Holland. He's had ridiculous opportunities. He's in ridiculous positions. He's sitting right in the box. He's almost always open because he's a foot taller than everybody else, or everybody else, I don't know, just ignores him because they're like, oh, Foden's not going to pass, or whoever's not going to pass, or they can't get the ball to him. Well, we saw KDB is a little bit of a magician, as we know. He'll get the ball to Holland if possible. That's where I'm sitting at right now. What do you think, Doc, as far as captains, or maybe what's your top three then?
Let me ask you a question before going into the top three. Like I'll mention my top three, but who do you think I will captain this game? If you had to guess my captain, who do you think I will?
You're going with Holland. That's my option. Nottingham have a leaky defense, but I mean they got one freaking heck of a goalkeeper back there. Let me tell you about him. He's coming off of a hat trick. He's feeling good. That's where I'm thinking.
Well, Joe, I think you know me too well. It was on Salah, let's say, up until 6, 7 hours ago, and then I started thinking about it, and I was thinking that I'd rather have Haaland, possibility of holding. So it's on Haaland currently, unless I get news that possibly Haaland is not starting. So I'd rather have Haaland's upside than Salah's versus Newcastle. Yes, I'm not saying Newcastle are basically the best defense in the league, but they are much better defense than Nottingham Forest. So I think we ask me who are your top three, I would say it's going to be Haaland, Salah, Jesus. So I would say those are my top three in order, let's say. So currently my captaincy is on Haaland because he just has the more upside. If he starts, he's bang. He's banging absolutely, like possibly a hat trick again. And again, the way I approach captaincy as well, because you try to get the most or the maximum points available for you. If I told you if another game is about to finish 9-0 this game week, and I gave you two options, is it Man City versus Nottingham Forest at home, or is it Liverpool versus Newcastle at home? And you'd probably say it's the Man City game because it's more likely to finish 9-0. Let's say Liverpool game finishes 3-0, then you would expect Salah to be involved in those three. And as we can see for the previous game week, it's a possibility that he's not that involved. So I think I'm chasing the upside. This is currently my captaincy is on Haaland, but And those are my arguments why you should captain Haaland. But captaining Salah, he was my captain up until 6 hours ago, until I got those thoughts into my mind.
So, Doc, I would actually say I agree with your three captains, and I would even throw Tony in there. I think Crystal Palace is. They're playing pretty well. They are a defensive stronghold traditionally, but they are biting into that attack a little bit more, which I feel like is sacrificing some on the defensive side. As we've seen, they've given up quite a few more goals than I feel like most managers have really expected.
Can see the shout. You'll almost shout Tony every single game week from now on. I can see this happening. Having said that, and we are talking about our captaincy, let's move to our teams. Joe, here's your team for next game week. What are your plans?
So, actually, right now, I think I'm going to sit on this team unless anything drastic happens, or I hear Zinchenko and Madison, like, both aren't going to play. Because I have Trippier on the bench who's up against Liverpool, and I feel like he can get some points against Liverpool for sure. He did against City. I feel like the team is solid, even though I got kind of a weak score last game week. I'm going to give him another option or chance to get in there, try and find some more points because it is a good team. Stats back it up for the most part. There are some other options I could transition to, but I want to work with this right now before I get too dangerous and start moving everybody out or pop that wild card.
So you're sticking captaincy on Haaland?
Captaincy is on Holland right now. Well, actually, I think I changed it last night. I put the vice on Jesus, but I don't know. I'll probably end up on Salah anyways.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that. Shall we move to my team, Joe? Here's my team. I've narrowed down my transfers into kind of three options. It's my team really. If I could, I would have probably burned the transfer, but I don't like burning a transfer. So my option one, basically, because I like the team, as you can see in front of you, I don't really see transfers that I would really like. Number one is basically just Ward down to Everson and get that point one in the bank and keep rolling the transfers. I have two free transfers and I have point five in the bank available for me. The next option is Ramsdale down to Sanchez because I think Sanchez has better fixtures over the next four, let's say four fixtures before I kind of wildcard when I'm planning to wildcard, which is between game week 8 and game week 9. I still haven't decided. So up until game week 8, I think Brighton has slightly better chances of clean sheets and probably save points from Sanchez because Ramsdale has kind of dropped from last season's potential for bonus points because Arsenal are playing very well and Ramsdale is not doing or making any saves because Arsenal defense is doing quite well except when they give the ball away to Mitrovic. My third option, which I'm leaning towards the most, is basically Walker down to Nico Williams and my Da Silva up to Gross. Because I just mentioned I like Brighton's fixtures and I think Gross will be a good option for the next four, chasing that upside. Walker down to Nico Williams because I would like Nico Williams next game week, so I'm kind of preempting that move. I'm trying to get the money to Gross, but also because I want to do this move next game week anyways, I might as well bring Nico Williams. Do share with us what do you think about those transfers, but I need to hear Joe first. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I was just going to say I think I actually like the third transfer the best. That would be the one that I would go with out of all of them. Although I would love to see you have Henderson in your team. Go with number 3.
Yeah, well, with number three, is basically changing the structure of the team. Nico Williams will go on the bench, and Maida Silva, who's on the bench currently, will become Gross, and he will come to the starting lineup. So I'll
For
play
sure.
4-4-2 instead.
Yep.
Everybody, we hope that you enjoyed this episode with us. I hope you share with us kind of what kind of transfers you have in your mind. Don't forget to drop a like, thumbs up. And Joe, would you like to say goodbye to our audience?
Yeah, echoing everything Doc said. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time. You know what to do with this game week. Let's get these points.
Let's give those points. Peace.